The first thing everyone noticed was not the blood. It was the dog. At 2:14 in the morning, the ER doors slammed open so hard the glass rattled in its frame. Cold rain rushed in with the soldiers, boots striking tile in sharp, uneven beats. A stretcher burst through, metal screaming, wheels skidding. On it lay Ethan Walker, 29, Navy SEAL, unconscious, his uniform torn open along the left side, dark blood soaking through field bandages already failing. And beside him, moving as one with the stretcher, was Rex. The military dog's teeth were bared, not in panic, in warning. His body was rigid, muscles locked, eyes tracking every hand that came too close to the man on the gurney. Each step the stretcher rolled forward, Rex matched it, shoulder brushing steel, breath low and steady. Guarding. "Who the hell brought a dog inside?" a nurse snapped, backing away. "It won't leave him," one of the soldiers said, voice tight, fingers still pressed briefly to the dog's neck before being pulled away by a crackling radio order. "That's his partner." Monitors were dragged in. A crash cart slammed into place. A surgeon in his 40s, jaw clenched, pointed sharply. "Get the animal out, now!" Security appeared at the doorway. Hands hovered near weapons. One step closer. Rex growled. Not loud. Controlled. Deliberate. A tech raised both palms, trying to sound calm. "Easy, boy. Easy." Rex lunged just enough to make the message unmistakable. Teeth flashed. The room froze. Someone whispered that if the dog bit anyone, they would have to put him down. That was when Clare Morgan stepped forward. 32. Plain blue scrubs. Blonde hair pulled tight. No rank, no authority anyone could see. She moved slowly, deliberately, lowering herself to one knee beside the stretcher, eyes never leaving the dog. She didn't touch him, didn't look at security. She leaned in and whispered 6 words, low and precise. Rex stopped mid-breath. The growl died. He sat, then gently lowered his head against Ethan's chest. In the silence that followed, every person in that room felt it at the same time. Whatever Clare Morgan was, she was not just a nurse. The room didn't breathe again until the surgeon swallowed. "All right, Dr. Samuel Brooks," said, voice rough, authority patched together on instinct. "Move!" The order cracked the paralysis. Gowns snapped, scissors sliced fabric. Blood bloomed across white sheets, dark and fast. Rex stayed planted, eyes tracking every motion, no longer threatening, but never yielding. Clare stepped back to the wall, hands loosely clasped, posture calm in a way that didn't belong to a civilian night shift. "Vitals," Brooks barked. "Pressure's dropping. Shrapnel wounds. Training blast?" A resident nodded too quickly. The monitor dipped, climbed, dipped again. The sound drilled into the skull. Someone muttered a prayer they didn't believe in. Clare watched the chest rise unevenly, the subtle pull to the left that didn't match the bandaging. Her jaw tightened. She waited. Then another dip, another shallow breath. Clamp, suction. Now, Brooks said. The tempo surged, controlled chaos. Rex's ears flicked once at the sharp whine of the monitor. He didn't move. Left side, Claire said quietly. Brooks didn't look at her. We're on it. No, she said, firmer. You're missing it. A beat. The wrong beat. She pushed off the wall. Just a step. Internal bleed. He's filling. You won't see it from the top. Brooks turned, eyes flashing. Who asked? The monitor plunged. A resident cursed. Brooks froze for half a second. That could have cost a life. Check it, he snapped. They did. Claire was right. The room went sharper, quieter. Hands moved faster. The surgeon's voice dropped an octave, stripped of ego. Charge. Paddles came down. Shock. Nothing. Shock again. A breath returned. Not much. Enough. Rex let out a soft sound, almost a whimper. Awareness. Not fear. Claire's eyes never left the table. When Brooks finally looked back at her, it wasn't anger he wore. It was something closer to recognition, and something colder beneath it. What did you say to the dog? He demanded. Claire didn't answer him. She watched the line steady and thought about how close death had come and how quietly it always arrived. The vibration came first, not a sound, a pressure, a deep thud that rolled through the floor and into bone. The lights flickered once. Someone near the doorway looked up, confused, as if the building itself had shifted. Then it came again, closer, heavier, unmistakable to anyone who had ever stood on a flight line. Rotor wash. What is that? A nurse asked, already knowing. Before anyone could answer, the ER doors opened and a security officer rushed in, breath short. Roof access just lit up, he said. Navy bird. No clearance request. Brooks frowned. For who? No one spoke. Claire felt it settle in her chest like a cold weight. She didn't look toward the ceiling. She didn't need to. The rhythm was wrong for a med evac. Too controlled. Too deliberate. This wasn't about the man on the table. Above them, steel met concrete. Rex lifted his head. One low bark rolled out of his chest. Not alarm. Recognition. Elevator doors opened down the hall. 4 men stepped out. Civilian jackets. No visible weapons. They moved without hurry, without noise, the way people move when the room adjusts to them instead. Conversations thinned, then stopped. A young resident felt his mouth go dry for no reason he could name. Restricted area, Brooks said automatically, stepping forward. His voice sounded thin to his own ears. The tallest man didn't slow. His eyes swept the corridor, took in the blood-streaked floor, the shaken staff, the dog guarding the gurney outside recovery. He stopped when he saw Rex. Something passed across his face. Respect. Relief. Then he looked past the dog. Where is she? He asked. Brooks blinked. Where's who? The nurse, the man said. The one who spoke to the dog. Silence spread, thick and heavy. Claire stood near the nurse's station, half turned away, finishing a chart she didn't need to finish. She had felt the air change the moment the elevator opened. She hadn't looked up because she already knew what she would see. The charge nurse pointed. Her. The man followed the gesture. He stopped short, boots planted, shoulders tightening just enough to be seen by the wrong eyes. He stared at Clare as if she were a photograph he had buried and sworn never to find again. Then slowly, deliberately, he raised his hand. The hallway forgot how to breathe. He saluted her. Not a casual gesture, not a courtesy. A full, rigid Navy salute, sharp enough to cut the air. Every conversation in the corridor died on impact. A nurse's clipboard slipped from her fingers and clattered against the floor, loud in the sudden stillness. Brooks felt the blood drain from his face. Security shifted, uncertain who outranked who anymore. Clare closed her eyes for a single breath. Then she opened them and returned the salute without hesitation, her hand steady, exact. "Commander Reed," she said quietly. The man lowered his hand. The color had left his face. "Ma'am," he replied, "I didn't know you were alive. Neither did most of the world." The words stayed unspoken, but everyone felt them. Brooks glanced between them, trying to stitch together what he was watching. A nurse, a commander, a salute that belonged on a parade ground, not a hospital hallway at 3 a.m. They moved her without argument. A small consultation room, glass walls, too clean, too bright. Rex followed to the door and stopped, sitting squarely, eyes never leaving Clare until the frame cut her from view. Inside, Reed removed his jacket and laid it over a chair like this was a briefing, not a reunion with a ghost. "How long?" he asked. "Long enough," Clare said. He shook his head slowly. "You were declared killed in action. Night ambush, Gulf region, entire unit wiped out." "I know," she said. "I was there." Reed leaned forward, elbows on the table. "That dog," he said. "The code you used." Clare met his eyes. Unit recall phrase. Conditioned response. It tells him command authority is present and his handler is secure. She paused. They retired it after my unit. Reed exhaled through his nose, a sound between grief and an anger. The man on that table shouldn't have survived transport. He didn't, Clare said. Not without the dog. Outside the room, Brooks stood frozen, listening to the hum of hospital machinery, realizing something irreversible had crossed his floor. Whatever Clare Morgan had been before tonight, the lie was over, and the truth had just landed on the roof. "The blast threw me clear," Clare said, voice level, as if describing weather. "That's the only reason I'm sitting here." Reed didn't interrupt. He knew better. She stared past him, eyes fixed on something far older than the room. Night operation, no moon, no air cover. We were ghosts, too clean to exist. Her fingers tightened once on the edge of the table, then relaxed. They knew our roots, perfect angles, perfect timing. "An inside leak," Reed said quietly. "Yes," she nodded. "The kind that doesn't leave fingerprints." The room seemed to shrink as she spoke. When I came to, everything was on fire. Radios dead. My team gone. A breath. Controlled. I stayed still. Long enough to be counted among the dead. Reed's jaw worked. We pulled bodies. Tags, equipment. No survivors. You weren't supposed to, Claire said. Someone wanted us erased, not mourned. She finally looked at him. The Admiral found me before the reports closed. He gave me a choice: trial, testimony, or a clean slate. And you vanished, Reed said. I chose to live, she corrected, as a human, not a weapon. Outside the glass, a gurney rolled by. Life continuing, indifferent. I learned to save lives instead of taking them. It felt like balance. A knock, soft. A medic leaned in. SEALs out of surgery. Stable. Reed stood at once. Claire was already on her feet. They stopped outside recovery. Rex rose and pressed his forehead to Claire's thigh. A brief, grounding wait. Reed watched, stunned. He recognizes you. He recognizes command, Claire said. And loss. Reed hesitated. You could come back. Advisory role. Protection. She shook her head. I'm done with war. Dawn crept in through the windows, pale and honest. Claire watched Ethan breathe. Rex curled at his side and felt the past loosen its grip. Not forgiven. Just finished. Morning tried to pretend nothing had happened. The ER softened at the edges as day staff filtered in, voices low, coffee steaming, eyes skimming charts without looking too hard at the night. But the building remembered. So did the people who had stood in that corridor and watched a salute rewrite the rules. Claire stayed near the ICU doors, arms loose, watching Ethan's chest rise and fall through the glass. Rex lay curled at the foot of the bed, one paw touching the frame, eyes half open, never sleeping. Reed joined her, hands folded behind his back. His team's still deployed, he said. Family hasn't been notified yet. A pause. The dogs cleared to stay. No one argued, Claire said. She didn't look away. A different presence arrived without sound. Shoes too quiet. A man in a dark civilian coat stopped at the desk, badge shown only halfway, just enough to end questions. He watched the ICU like a ledger. When he turned, his eyes landed on Claire and didn't move. Security footage, he said to Reed. From the trauma bay. Reed's shoulders tightened. Who's asking? Naval Intelligence, the man replied. A K-9 entering full combat mode in a civilian hospital is an incident. A K-9 standing down after a retired unit code is something else. Claire exhaled slowly. I didn't plan to say it. I know, the man said. That's the problem. He studied her like a variable. Your unit wasn't just classified. It was buried. They tried, Claire said. Someone came looking. The man's mouth twitched. That's why the Admiral moved fast. A monitor chirped. Ethan stirred. Rex's head lifted, body tensing. A nurse stepped back, unsure. The man in the coat took a step closer to the door. Rex growled, low and precise, not at the staff, at the man. "Stand down," Reed said. The man raised a hand, calm. "We're not finished." Clare didn't turn. She stepped closer to the glass, grounding herself in the steady rhythm of breath and machine. "You're right," she said. "But not tonight." The growl faded. The building breathed again, careful, like it knew the next move would matter. Ethan woke, fighting air. His chest jerked, hands clawing weakly at sheets that held him down. A nurse rushed in, voice high. "Easy, easy, you're in the hospital." The words slid past him. The ceiling lights blurred into something harsher, older. A desert glare. Rex was on his feet instantly, body locked, eyes fixed on the bed. The man in the dark coat stepped forward without thinking. Rex blocked him. A single bark cracked the room. Not loud. Final. Clare was already moving. She dropped to one knee beside the bed, one hand firm on Ethan's shoulder, the other open, visible. "You're safe," she said, low and steady. "You're stateside. Don't move." Her voice cut through the panic like a line through fog. Ethan's eyes fluttered, searching. They landed on her face and stopped. Something clicked. His breathing hitched, then slowed. "Clare," he rasped. The name barely made it out, broken by pain and drugs, but it landed heavy. The nurse froze. Reed went still. The man in the coat felt the room tilt. "How does he know you?" Reed asked, already knowing the answer would matter. Ethan swallowed, eyes never leaving her. "Night op," he whispered. "Years back. Different team." A grimace. "We were pinned. Thought it was over." His fingers twitched, brushing Rex's fur. The dog leaned in, grounding him. They came out of nowhere. Moved like ghosts. The man in the coat stepped closer. "You shouldn't remember that." Ethan's eyes sharpened. "I remember because they saved us." A breath. Her unit did. Silence fell, dense and dangerous. Reed turned slowly toward the man, something hard settling behind his eyes. "You told us there were no witnesses." "Memories fade," the man said, calculating. "Apparently not," Reed replied. Clare closed her eyes for a moment, not in relief, but in acceptance. The past hadn't followed her by accident. It had found its voice, and it had spoken her name. "You're still a liability," the man in the coat said, breaking the silence like a blade on glass. His tone stayed even, professional, as if lives were entries on a balance sheet. "Your existence contradicts sealed reports, entire operations." He glanced at Ethan, then back to Clare. "That doesn't disappear because one soldier remembers." Clare finally turned to face him. Her expression didn't harden. It clarified. "Then unseal them," she said. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "You think that ends well? For you? For the Navy? I think I've lived long enough pretending I don't exist." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Rex shifted closer to the bed, sitting square, eyes locked on the man. The posture said enough. Reed stepped forward. "This ends here." "You don't have the authority," the man replied, eyes narrowing. Reed reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped once, then again. "I do now." The man's phone vibrated. He checked it. He checked. The color drained from his face in stages, like a slow bleed. He looked up, measuring the room again. The dog, the patient, the nurse who wasn't supposed to be alive. "You went over my head," he said quietly. "I went to the only person who still remembers what that unit did," Reed said, "and who signed off on erasing them." The man nodded once, tight. "This isn't finished." "It is for me," Clare said. He turned and walked out without another word. The corridor exhaled as if it had been holding breath since nightfall. Ethan's vitals steadied. Rex curled beside the bed, one paw against the frame, satisfied but alert. "They'll never fully admit it," Reed said to Clare. "What you were. What your unit did." "I don't need them to," she replied. He studied her. They offered reinstatement, advisory role, protection. Clare looked at Ethan, at Rex, at the ordinary hospital room carrying extraordinary weight. "I chose this life," she said, "and I'll keep choosing it." Reed nodded, respect settling in his posture as morning light filled the room and the war finally stayed outside the glass. The hospital slipped back into routine by degrees, like a city after a storm. Phones rang, gurneys rolled, overhead pages lost their edge. Clare stood at the nurse's station, charting vitals she had already memorized, the steady tap of keys grounding her in the present. People passed her and slowed without knowing why. A resident paused mid-sentence. A senior nurse met her eyes and nodded once, not friendly, not fearful. Acknowledgement. Brooks approached, steps measured. He stopped at arm's length, hands open, a man recalibrating. "You're staying?" he asked. Clare didn't look up. "I've got a shift." He watched her for a moment, then gave a short breath that sounded like relief. "We could use you." It wasn't an offer. It was an admission. Down the hall, the ICU glass reflected morning light. Ethan slept, color better now, lines steady. Rex hadn't moved more than a few inches since surgery ended. A tech tried to offer water. The dog ignored it, eyes never leaving the bed. Loyalty without performance. Duty without applause. Reed lingered by the doorway, weight shifted back, no longer in command posture. "They'll watch," he said quietly. "From a distance?" "They always do," Clare replied. A nurse approached, hesitant. "Administration's asking for you." "Paperwork." A pause. And the K9 handler unit called. "They want to thank you." Clare allowed a small smile, the kind that didn't invite attention. "Tell them he did the work." The nurse nodded and left, glancing back once like she wanted to ask something and didn't know how. Reed straightened, preparing to go. "You're not invisible anymore," he said. Clare finished the chart and closed the screen. "Not to the people who matter." He left without ceremony. Clare walked back to the ICU, crouched beside Rex, and rested her hand lightly on his head. He leaned into the touch, just for a second, then settled again. Outside, traffic moved. Morning news played somewhere. The world continued, unaware of how close it had come to forgetting the wrong person. By late morning, questions began to circle like birds. Not loud, not direct. Quiet requests routed through administration, legal phrasing wrapped around curiosity. Clare was called once, then twice, to sign forms that documented nothing unusual in language that tried too hard. She read every line. She signed where required. She declined where it mattered. No raised voices, no threats, just pressure applied with soft hands. In the ICU, Ethan woke clearer this time. Pain etched his face, but his eyes held. He watched Clare approach and managed a thin smile. "Thought I was dreaming," he said. "Heard your voice." Rex rose and pressed in, tail still, presence solid. Ethan's fingers found fur. "Good boy," he whispered. The dog leaned closer, satisfied. "Training accident," Clare said gently. "You're going to be sore." "Been worse," Ethan replied. A pause. "They told us your unit was gone. They told you what they needed to," she said. She didn't add more. He didn't ask. Outside the room, Brooks spoke with a hospital attorney in low tones. "No," Brooks said, firmer than Clare had ever heard him. "She's credentialed. She followed chain. I'll sign." The attorney hesitated, then nodded, recalculating. Reed returned briefly, long enough to pass a message. "The inquiry will say, 'Equipment malfunction,'" he said. Quiet. Internal. He met Clare's eyes. "That's the best I can do." "It's enough," she replied. Near noon, a man from facilities paused by the door, unsure. "We, need to clear the area for cleaning." Rex lifted his head. The man froze. Clare touched the dog's collar lightly. "Give us 5." The man nodded and backed away, relieved. Clare sat with Ethan and Rex, listening to the machine's hum. Outside the window, sunlight washed the city clean. Inside, the truth settled where it belonged, not in reports or headlines, but in breath returned, a life held, a choice kept. By afternoon, the building felt lighter, but the edges stayed sharp. Clare stepped into a quiet alcove by the lockers, where the noise thinned and the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Reed waited there, hands in his pockets now, rank set aside. "There's one more thing," he said. "They'll seal the record again. Different language. Cleaner." He watched her face. "It protects you." "And them," Clare said. He didn't argue. "Ethan will be transferred in a day or 2. His team rotates back next week." A pause. "They asked if you wanted to be mentioned." Clare shook her head. "Let it stay small." Reed nodded, understanding the cost of names. "You trained animals like Rex," he said. "Handlers, too." "We trained as units," Clare replied. Dogs weren't equipment. They were people who couldn't speak. She leaned back against the wall. "We lost all of ours." Reed's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." A nurse appeared at the end of the hall. "He's asking for you," she said, voice gentler than protocol required. Ethan was awake, eyes clearer now. He looked older in the daylight, lines etched by pain and memory. "They're saying I'll be okay," he said. "Long road." "You'll walk it," Clare said. He studied her. "You came back." She smiled faintly. "No." "You did." He nodded, accepting the distinction. "If they ask," he began. "They won't," Clare said. "And if they do, you tell the truth. Just enough." Rex shifted, tail thumping once against the floor. Ethan reached down and rested his hand there. "Didn't leave," he murmured. "No," Clare said. "He didn't." Outside, a television in the waiting room droned on about markets and weather. Inside, something older settled into place. The war didn't end. It simply lost its claim on her. Dawn finished what the night had started. The ICU windows filled with soft light, the kind that made everything look ordinary again. Clare stood at the nurse's station, charting vitals, answering call lights, moving through the shift like she always had. No announcements, no handshakes, just work. Doctors passed her with a different awareness now. Not reverence, not fear, but something steadier. Respect earned without spectacle. Ethan slept. Rex remained at his side, breathing slow, one paw still touching the frame, a promise kept. When a tech walked by too fast, the dog lifted his head, then settled. The danger had passed. The duty had not. Outside the room, the hospital resumed its rhythm, unaware of how close it had come to choosing wrong. Clare paused once, just once, and looked through the glass. A man alive, a dog loyal, a past that had tried to reclaim her and failed. She didn't need her old name. She didn't need medals or statements or a seat at any table. She had made her choice years ago, and she was still standing in it. The story would never make the news. It would never be written up cleanly. It would live where most truths do, in the memory of a few people who saw something real and knew enough not to ask for more. That was enough. It always had been. Clare picked up a call light and walked back into the day. Quiet. Steady. Unremarkable to anyone who didn't know better. And sometimes, that is where the strongest stories belong. If this story meant something to you, take a moment to like and subscribe, and leave a comment with 3 words that stay with you. Never judge quiet.